The station hummed with quiet energy, the low vibration of engines and machinery filling every corridor. Calder Vane walked through the bustling trade hub, his hands deep in the pockets of his uniform, eyes fixed firmly ahead. He did not notice the shimmering banners above or the alien merchants arranging their exotic goods. He moved like a shadow, careful not to draw attention. Calder had learned long ago that it was easier to exist quietly than to interact, easier to focus on work than on people. His son Eris ran ahead a few steps, his small boots clattering on the metal floor. "Father." "Wait," he called, though Calder barely turned his head. Calder's attention was always on schedules, repairs, and reports. Life had taught him that feelings were messy, distracting, and often dangerous. Sereth Kale moved gracefully through the same corridors, unnoticed by most, including Calder. Her scales shimmered with a muted green that reflected the station's lights, and her golden eyes watched the surroundings with constant alertness. She carried herself with quiet dignity, yet there was a softness in the way she watched children and the elderly, offering help without words. Many ignored her, but some felt the calm assurance she radiated. Eris darted to the edge of a maintenance platform, peering down at the machinery below. "Look, father. Isn't it amazing?" he said, his voice filled with excitement. Calder stopped, glancing briefly at the intricate systems. "It works," he muttered, his tone flat. He did not smile, did not marvel. He did not look twice. From a distance, Sereth noticed the boy's curiosity. She stepped closer, though not enough to be noticed. When Eris accidentally leaned too far over the railing, she moved swiftly, catching him in her strong clawed hand. The boy yelped in surprise but was unharmed. Calder, oblivious, continued down the corridor, speaking into his communicator about a malfunction in Sector 7. Eris looked up at the shadowy figure that had saved him, confusion and awe in his eyes. Who are you?" he whispered. Sereth smiled gently, her voice soft and melodic. "Just someone who wanted to make sure you were safe," she said. She set him down and watched as he ran back toward his father. Calder did not look. That night, Calder sat alone in his quarters, the soft hum of the station like a lullaby he could not hear. Eris slept on a small cot beside him, exhausted from the day's excitement. Calder stared at the wall, feeling the weight of silence pressing in. He did not know why he felt restless. It was a feeling he had not allowed himself to have in years. In the corridors above, Sereth walked silently, her mind restless as well. She knew the station had dangers hidden behind routine and order. She had spent years observing, intervening when necessary, and yet no one ever noticed her efforts. She carried her burdens alone, the memory of past distrust and prejudice always close. She did not expect thanks. She never had. The next morning, Calder moved through the station with the same determined focus. Reports, tools, and schematics filled his thoughts. Eris clung to his hand, pointing out small wonders along the way, but Calder remained unmoved. He had no time for marveling. He had no time for gratitude or connection. He had only the rhythm of work to keep him steady. Sereth watched from a distance as Calder interacted with the station's systems, the boy trailing behind. She could see the strain etched into his face, the rigid lines of a man who had long given up on seeing beyond duty. Yet in those rare moments when he smiled at Eris's excitement, she saw glimpses of something buried deep inside, a capacity for care, hidden under years of neglect. A warning flashed on the station monitors, a small structural failure in a nearby docking bay. Calder's eyes flicked to it, his instincts sharp. He moved swiftly, unaware that the same alert had also reached Sereth's sensors. She raced toward the docking bay, her powerful limbs carrying her faster than any human could hope. Calder arrived moments later, concerned, but he did not see her until it was too late. Debris began to fall as the structure weakened further. Eris froze, fear paralyzing him. Calder called for him to move, but the boy was too frightened to listen. In a heartbeat, Sereth dove into the path of danger, lifting Eris away from the collapsing metal. Calder watched, finally, his eyes wide with shock. His heart thumped in his chest, not from fear but from the realization that someone had risked themselves for his son. The dust settled. Eris was safe, trembling but unharmed. Calder stood frozen, staring at Sereth, who now held Eris gently. Her eyes met his, calm yet unwavering. Calder opened his mouth, but no words came. For years he had refused to see her, not because he disliked her but because he never thought to notice. Now for the first time he truly looked. Eris tugged at Calder's sleeve. "Father, she saved me. Why didn't you see her before?" The boy's simple question struck Calder in a way nothing else ever had. He swallowed hard, feeling the tightness in his chest. The world seemed suddenly larger, filled with possibilities he had ignored. He realized that he had been blind, not to danger, not to evil, but to something far more important. Kindness, courage and love that did not fit neatly into his narrow world. Sereth lowered Eris to the floor and gave Calder a small nod, almost imperceptible. Calder knelt beside his son, placing a hand on his shoulder. Eris's wide eyes searched his father's face. I didn't notice her, Calder whispered, his voice unsteady. I should have. For the first time in years, Calder felt something unfamiliar, a spark of humility mixed with awe. He looked at Sereth again, seeing not a dragon woman, not an outsider, but someone who had acted with heart when he had failed. His son had opened a door in him and he did not want to close it. The station continued its steady hum, oblivious to the quiet change in a human heart. Calder stood, taking Eris's hand, and looked once more at Sereth. Something unspoken passed between them, a promise that this was only the beginning. The man who had refused to see was starting to understand that some truths were too important to ignore, some heroes too quiet to be missed. And in that moment, Calder Vane knew that his life and the life of his son would never be the same. Eris could not stop talking about what had happened. He tugged at his father's sleeve as they walked through the station corridors. Father, did you see her? She saved me. She didn't even hesitate. His small voice was full of wonder. Calder's hand tightened slightly around Eris's, but he remained silent, unsure how to respond. He had seen bravery many times, but this was different. This was not just skill or courage, it was selfless, deliberate care for his child. Eris looked back over his shoulder, hoping Calder would say something. Why didn't you notice her before? She's amazing. Calder's chest tightened. He had noticed plenty in his years, but he had never really looked. He had never looked past his own routine, his own world. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Later that day, Calder and Eris returned to their quarters. Eris could not stop asking about Sereth. Do you think she gets lonely? Does anyone ever say thank you to her? Calder leaned against the wall, exhaustion settling over him. He had not realized how heavy ignorance could feel until now. Eris sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes shining. Father, people should see her. She's special. Calder swallowed hard. He did not know how to explain that he had been blind for so long, that his world had been too small to notice others. The words felt heavy, almost shameful. Yet Eris's innocent gaze pierced through the weight, simple and honest, forcing Calder to confront what he had ignored. The next morning the station's alarms rang out, sharp and urgent. Calder reacted immediately, grabbing his tools and heading toward the source of the alert. Eris ran beside him, holding his father's hand tightly. Father, do you think she's okay? Eris asked, worry lining his young face. Calder hesitated. He had not thought about Sereth's safety until that moment. As they reached the central docking bay, chaos awaited. Panels sparked and smoke rose in thin tendrils. Workers shouted, moving in panic, unsure of where to go. Calder's heart pounded as he searched the area. He saw the debris shifting dangerously, ready to fall. And then he saw her, Sereth Kale, moving calmly, carefully shielding a group of stranded station workers. Her eyes met his for a moment, calm yet unwavering, before she returned to her work. Eris clung to Calder's arm. Father, she's helping them. Why didn't you notice her before? The boy's words were simple, but they cut deep. Calder realized how much he had missed, not just her, but the many quiet acts of bravery and care that had gone unnoticed around him for years. He had been so focused on his own world that he had failed to see the goodness in front of him. Sereth moved with precision, lifting debris and guiding frightened workers to safety. Calder felt a strange mix of awe and guilt. He had always thought that heroism required great strength or fame, but here was proof that courage could be quiet, patient, and unseen. His son's voice echoed again in his mind. Why didn't you notice her? The danger escalated. A support beam cracked and sparks flew toward the crowd. Calder's instincts kicked in and he ran to help, but Sereth was already in position, steadying the beam and directing workers away. Eris's hand squeezed his father's. She's amazing, father. She didn't even think about herself. Calder nodded, his face tight with emotion. He had never realized that heroism could be so humble, so selfless. When the chaos finally subsided, the workers were safe and the debris cleared, Calder approached Sereth. He felt awkward, unsure of what to say. Words failed him, and for the first time in years, he understood how meaningless silence could feel in the face of truth. Sereth gave a small nod, acknowledging his presence without judgment. Eris ran to her, throwing his arms around her waist. Thank you. Thank you for saving me, he exclaimed. Sereth's face softened and she returned the hug gently. Calder watched, feeling a mix of pride and shame. He had allowed his own blindness to persist for so long, yet his son's words had opened a door he never knew existed. That night, Calder sat beside Eris in their quarters. "Eris, your words today, they made me think," Calder said quietly. Eris tilted his head, curious. "You mean, about Sereth?" Calder nodded. I didn't see her before. I thought I was looking but I wasn't. You were right." Eris smiled, satisfied that his father finally understood. The boy's innocence had done what years of experience and logic could not. Calder realized that his heart had been closed, not by cynicism but by habit. Eris's simple truth had cracked it open. He looked out the small window at the stars beyond the station, feeling the weight of possibility. There were other acts of courage he had ignored, other truths he had failed to see. The next day, Calder found himself searching for Sereth, not because of duty but because of curiosity and respect. He wanted to understand her, to see the quiet strength his son had admired. When he finally spotted her in the corridors, helping a small group of traders carry heavy cargo, he paused. For the first time he really looked. Eris tugged at his sleeve. "Father, you see her now, right?" Calder's throat tightened. He nodded. "Yes, Eris. I see her now." The boy's smile was wide, full of joy. Calder felt a new warmth in his chest, a quiet hope that he had forgotten existed. The world seemed brighter, fuller, more alive than it had in years. Calder realized that seeing someone was more than just noticing them. It was understanding their courage, their kindness, their worth. Sereth Kale had acted without recognition, without expectation, and yet she had changed the course of his life, and his son's, in ways he had never imagined. That night, Calder lay awake, thinking of the quiet dragon woman who had risked herself for his son. He remembered Eris's words, "Why didn't you notice her?" The question haunted him but it also guided him. He had learned that some truths were too important to ignore, some people too remarkable to overlook. And for the first time, Calder Vane made a silent promise to himself. He would no longer walk through life blind. He would look. He would notice. He would learn to see courage, kindness, and heroism, even in the quietest, most unexpected forms. Eris slept peacefully beside him, unaware of the change already stirring in his father's heart. Calder watched the stars beyond the station's window, a quiet determination growing inside him. The boy's simple truth had opened a door, and Calder knew he would never close it again. Calder could not stop thinking about Sereth Kale. Her courage, her calm, her quiet strength, everything about her lingered in his mind like a song he could not forget. He walked through the station halls trying to focus on work, but every machine, every flashing panel reminded him of the danger she had faced for his son. He had never realized how much he had ignored. Eris skipped beside him, full of energy as always. "Father, do you think she sleeps alone? Does she have friends?" Eris asked, his small hand brushing against Calder's arm. Calder shook his head slowly. I don't know," he said, surprised at how heavy the thought felt. He had never thought about anyone like that, not in years. And yet, the thought of her alone, carrying burdens no one knew about, pressed on him. Sereth moved through the station with her usual quiet grace. She had spent years watching over humans, aliens, and creatures alike, keeping them safe when danger arose. Most never noticed her. Many had ignored her. She had grown used to working alone, carrying her responsibilities quietly. It was not pride or stubbornness, it was survival. The galaxy did not reward those who helped without expectation. But now, after saving Eris, she felt a small stir of hope. Perhaps someone finally had seen her, not just her form, not just her dragon nature, but her choices, her courage, her care. She had lived with the weight of suspicion and fear for centuries. Her species had been feared and hunted. She had learned to act alone, to protect without acknowledgement and to trust few. Calder, meanwhile, was beginning to notice the quiet burdens Sereth carried. He heard whispers in the corridors, humans and aliens murmuring about the dragon woman who acted heroically, yet received no reward. He realized that she had saved countless lives before, and no one had thanked her, no one had even noticed. Her life was a constant weight, carried silently, with no hope of acknowledgement. Eris tugged at Calder's sleeve. "Father, why does she do all this and no one says anything?" Calder looked down at his son, feeling shame and awe at the same time. "Because she is strong in a way we often forget. She helps because it is right, not because anyone notices." Eris frowned, puzzled. "But isn't that lonely?" Calder did not answer immediately. The truth was heavy. He had never considered what it meant to act bravely without praise, without recognition, without even the comfort of friendship. That afternoon, a station-wide alert rang out. Another malfunction, this one in the cargo sector. Calder rushed toward the sound, tools clattering in his hands. Eris followed, calling after him. But when they arrived, the scene was already in chaos. Boxes toppled, fires flickered, and injured workers scrambled to safety. And there, in the middle of it all, was Sereth Kale, moving with calm precision. She lifted debris, guided people to safety, and even soothed frightened children, her golden eyes steady. Calder froze for a moment, overwhelmed by the realization of how much responsibility she bore alone. He had seen bravery before, but he had never seen it carried so quietly, so fully. She risked herself for others constantly, and yet she had no one to rely on. She carried the station's safety, the lives of strangers, and the burden of suspicion all by herself. Eris tugged at his father's hand. "Father, she never complains. She never asks for help." "Why?" Calder shook his head. I don't know," he admitted. "Some people are like that. They protect others because it is right, not because they want anything in return. She has carried more than most of us could imagine." Calder began to understand the depth of Seretha's isolation. Every day she balanced responsibility, danger, and fear alone. Every day she made choices that could cost her life, yet no one ever noticed. He felt a pang of guilt. For years, he had ignored her existence, never realizing the quiet heroism that had unfolded around him. He had walked through life blind to courage that did not fit his narrow vision. That night, Calder could not sleep. He watched Eris sleeping peacefully, unaware of the weight carried by the dragon woman who had saved him twice now. Calder thought about all the times he had ignored others, all the quiet acts of courage he had never recognized. And he realized that humanity, with all its strength and ingenuity, could learn from Sereth Kale. True bravery did not seek applause. True heroism did not need recognition. The following day, Calder sought Sereth. He found her in the maintenance corridors, carefully inspecting structural panels. He hesitated, unsure how to approach someone who had carried so much alone, someone who had never asked for attention or gratitude. When she noticed him, her eyes met his with calm curiosity, not suspicion or judgment. Calder swallowed, feeling the weight of unspoken words. "Thank you," Calder said finally, his voice quiet but sincere. "For everything. For saving my son, and for all the times no one noticed you." Seretha's eyes softened slightly and she inclined her head. "I do what I must," she replied simply. "I never expected thanks." Eris ran forward, his eyes shining. "Father. I told you she's amazing." He turned to Sereth, hugging her small but strong frame. Calder watched, moved by the innocence of his son and the patience of the dragon woman. He realized that seeing someone truly meant understanding the burdens they carried, the choices they made, and the courage they displayed, even when no one else did. Calder spent the next few days observing Sereth quietly, noticing her careful actions, her vigilance, and the way she moved through the station with purpose. He saw how often she stepped in to prevent accidents, how she guided newcomers, and how she always seemed to put others before herself. The weight she carried alone was staggering, yet she bore it with grace. One evening, Calder and Eris watched her from a distance as she helped repair a damaged communication array. Eris whispered, "Father, she does everything alone." "Why?" Calder's chest tightened. "Because she is strong, Eris. Stronger than most of us. And brave in ways we cannot imagine." Eris frowned, worried. "But isn't that sad?" Calder thought for a moment. "It is, but it also teaches us something. Sometimes courage is quiet, and sometimes we must choose to see it, even if others do not." For the first time, Calder realized that seeing someone was not enough. Understanding them, noticing their struggles, recognizing their bravery, that was the true gift. And he knew that Sereth Kale had already given him and his son that gift, without ever asking for it in return. That night, Calder lay awake again, thinking of the dragon woman who had carried so much alone. He felt a deep sense of respect, admiration, and a stirring of something he had almost forgotten, the desire to act rightly, to notice courage, and to step forward when others hesitated. Eris slept soundly beside him, but Calder felt the weight of knowledge pressing on his heart. Sereth Kale, alone in her quarters, reflected on her life. She had long expected solitude, long expected that her deeds would go unnoticed. But now something had changed. She had been seen, truly seen, by a human man and his child. It was a small recognition, but it mattered more than she expected. For the first time, she felt the faintest hope that perhaps she did not have to carry her burdens entirely alone. And so, the station continued its quiet hum, but within it, something had shifted. Calder had begun to see. Eris had spoken the truth. And Sereth Kale, for the first time in years, allowed herself to hope that the weight she carried might one day be shared. The station's alarms rang again, sharper this time, louder, more urgent. Calder Vane grabbed his tools and ran through the corridors, Eris close behind him, clutching his father's hand. Smoke curled from vents and sparks fell from overhead wires. Workers shouted, their panic filling the air. Calder's heart pounded, not just from fear but from a growing awareness of what was at stake. Sereth Kale was already there, moving calmly through the chaos. She guided injured workers toward safety, lifted heavy debris, and blocked sparks with her powerful tail. Her golden eyes never wavered, her every movement precise and controlled. Calder stopped for a moment, awed. He had seen courage before, but he had never seen it carried so fully, so selflessly. "Father, she's amazing," Eris shouted, pointing. "Look at her. She's helping everyone." Calder nodded, but there was something else stirring inside him, a sense of responsibility. He had watched too long, ignored too many warnings, and now he knew that action mattered. As debris shifted above, a massive support beam groaned and cracked. Calder saw the danger instantly. Workers screamed and froze in fear. Sereth was in position, holding the beam steady, but there were too many people around. Calder had a choice: stay back, stay safe, or step forward. Without thinking, he ran into the chaos, lifting tools and assisting where he could. Eris followed, shouting, "Father, be careful." Calder ignored him. Every second mattered. He coordinated with Sereth, moving panels, directing people away from danger, and stabilizing weak supports. Humans and aliens alike followed his instructions, surprised at the sudden decisiveness in the usually reserved engineer. Sparks flew dangerously close, and a falling crate rolled toward the group. Calder dove, pushing a worker out of the way. He felt the impact knock the wind out of him, but he got up immediately, driven by something he had never felt before: responsibility beyond himself. Sereth noticed and gave him a small nod of approval before returning to the others. Eris watched wide-eyed. "Father, you're helping too." Calder didn't answer, focusing on moving debris and assisting trapped workers. He realized that bravery was not only in Sereth's careful, quiet strength but also in the choice to act, even when fear screamed to stay back. The chaos grew. Fire sparked, panels fell, and smoke thickened the air. Calder called out instructions, directing people to safer areas while Sereth lifted heavy structures and blocked dangerous sparks. The humans and aliens began to follow Calder's lead, their fear replaced by trust in his sudden courage. For the first time, he understood the power of humanity, not just machines, not just technology, but the ability to step forward when it mattered, to make choices that could save lives. A young alien child slipped near a smoking panel, frozen in fear. Calder sprinted, scooping the child into his arms and tossing them to safety. Sparks flew close and he felt the heat on his arms, but he did not falter. Eris ran beside him, cheering, encouraging, his small voice full of hope. Sereth finally straightened, the last of the debris moved aside, and all the workers were safe. She looked at Calder, her eyes golden and unreadable. Calder met her gaze, feeling something unspoken pass between them. Respect. Recognition. Understanding. They had acted together, human and dragon, strength and courage combined. The emergency systems cut off the fire suppression alarms, leaving the station in uneasy quiet. Workers murmured their gratitude, some looking toward Sereth, some toward Calder. For the first time, Calder felt the weight of acknowledgement, not for glory, but for action taken when it truly mattered. He realized that true heroism was not about recognition, but about doing the right thing, even when no one else would. Eris ran to Sereth, hugging her tightly. "Thank you. You saved everyone," he said, his voice trembling with excitement and relief. Calder watched, a lump forming in his throat. He had ignored her for so long, but now he understood. He had seen what mattered. He had acted. And together they had made a difference. Calder turned to Sereth, feeling something new in his chest, a quiet gratitude, deep respect, and a hint of humility. You were amazing," he said softly. Sereth inclined her head slightly, her usual calm demeanor unbroken. "We did what we must," she said. "That is all." Calder nodded. It was more than enough. That night, Calder sat beside Eris in their quarters. "Eris, today you were right. She is incredible. And I think I understand now." Eris's eyes lit up. "Really? Father, you saw it?" Calder smiled faintly. Yes, I saw it. And I acted. We acted. That is what matters. Eris hugged him tightly, and Calder felt the warmth of connection he had almost forgotten. Calder's thoughts returned to Sereth. She carried more than most could imagine. Her life had been heavy with responsibility, suspicion, and isolation. Yet she acted without complaint, without recognition, without expectation. Calder realized that humanity's strength was not just in technology, not just in intellect, but in courage, in action, and in the choice to do what was right when it mattered most. He promised himself silently that he would no longer ignore such courage. He would not only see Sereth but also support her, stand with her when the situation demanded it, and recognize the quiet heroism she had shown for so long. Eris's words and the events of the day had opened a door in his heart, one he would not let close again. Outside the station, the stars stretched endlessly, silent witnesses to the courage displayed within the corridors. Calder watched from the observation deck, Eris beside him, and for the first time he felt that humanity could live up to its potential, not through domination or power but through choice, action, and understanding. The quiet hum of the station settled once more. Calder knew that the true lesson of today was not survival alone, but partnership, recognition, and the strength to act when it mattered most. Sereth Kale had shown him the way. Now it was his turn to step forward, to be the human who stood where it mattered, for his son, for the station, and for the dragon woman who had carried so much alone. The station had returned to its usual rhythm, the hum of engines and machinery filling the air once more. Calder Vane walked slowly through the corridors, Eris at his side. The events of the past days had changed something in him. He no longer walked blindly, lost in his routine. He looked, he noticed, and he thought differently now. Eris skipped ahead, excited as ever. "Father, look. She's over there," he exclaimed, pointing toward a hallway where Sereth Kale moved gracefully among the station's workers. Calder followed his son's gaze, really seeing her for the first time. She was calm, focused, yet her eyes held the weight of countless responsibilities she had carried alone. Calder's chest tightened with a mixture of admiration and guilt. He knelt beside Eris. "She has done so much, Eris. More than we can imagine." The boy nodded, his eyes wide. "She helped me, Father. She helped everyone. Why didn't you see her before?" Calder took a deep breath. I didn't. I was too focused on my own world, my own fears. But now I see. And I will not forget it again." Later that day, Calder found Sereth in the maintenance bay, carefully inspecting a malfunctioning panel. He hesitated, unsure how to approach her. When she noticed him, her golden eyes met his, calm and unjudging. Calder swallowed and spoke quietly. "Sereth, I want to thank you. For saving my son. For saving everyone. And for all the times no one else noticed." Sereth inclined her head, her expression gentle. "I do what I must. I never expect thanks." Calder nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "But sometimes, people should see what is right in front of them," he said softly. Sereth's eyes softened, and for the first time, Calder saw a trace of hope there. Eris ran forward, tugging at Calder's hand. "Father, can I say thank you too?" Sereth crouched to the boy's level. "You are brave," she said, her voice warm. Eris smiled, and Calder felt something deep inside him shift. A sense of understanding, of connection, and of humility. Over the next days, Calder began to notice more than just Sereth. He saw the workers she helped, the quiet acts of care she performed, the guidance she gave to newcomers, and the patience she showed even under stress. Every action told him a story of courage, responsibility, and selflessness. He realized that humanity's strength was mirrored in her choices, the decision to act rightly even when no one watches. One evening, Calder and Eris watched the stars from the observation deck. "Father, do you think she's happy?" Eris asked. Calder looked at the dragon woman moving below, helping a group of traders carry cargo safely. He thought about her life, the burdens she carried, and the loneliness she endured. "I think she finds purpose, Eris. And sometimes purpose is more powerful than happiness. But now she is seen. And that changes everything." The boy frowned. "Will she always be alone?" Calder shook his head slowly. "Not always. If we choose to see her, to respect her, to stand with her, she won't have to be." Eris smiled, relieved. Calder placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "The world is bigger than our routines, Eris. And courage is sometimes quiet, sometimes unseen. But it matters all the same." The next day, a minor emergency broke out in the docking bay. Smoke filled the corridors and alarms rang sharply. Calder acted immediately, rushing to help with Eris close behind. Sereth was already there, her calm presence guiding workers away from danger. Calder joined her, coordinating actions, moving debris and assisting those trapped. Together, human ingenuity and draconic strength prevented disaster. Workers, both human and alien, watched as the two worked side by side. Calder felt pride, not for himself but for the choice he had made to act, to stand where it mattered, and to truly see Sereth Kale. Eris ran among the workers, helping where he could, his small hands mimicking the actions he had watched from both his father and Sereth. After the emergency ended, Calder approached Sereth once more. "You've carried so much alone for so long," he said. "It's time you are not alone anymore. We see you now. I see you. And I will not forget it." Sereth's golden eyes glimmered faintly. She had spent years guarding others, protecting strangers, and living with suspicion and isolation. To be acknowledged, sincerely, by a human and his son, was more than she had expected. Eris tugged at Calder's sleeve. "Father, can I play with her sometimes?" Calder smiled, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "Yes, Eris. She will be part of our lives. You have reminded me that seeing someone fully means more than noticing them. It means understanding, trusting, and sharing life together." In the days that followed, Calder made a conscious effort to see more. He noticed workers' efforts, the quiet guidance of others, and small acts of bravery all around the station. But none were as profound as Sereth Kale, who had risked herself repeatedly, carried burdens alone, and never asked for recognition. Calder learned from her example. Humanity's true strength, he realized, was not in technology or power, but in the ability to act rightly, to notice courage, and to choose kindness. Eris laughed as he ran towards Sereth, who bent down to greet him. Calder watched them, a quiet smile on his face. The boy's innocence had opened a door in him, one that allowed him to see, to understand, and to act. Calder felt a lightness he had not known in years, a sense of connection and purpose. That evening, Calder stood in the observation deck alone, looking at the stars. The station hummed softly beneath him, steady and alive. He thought about all the moments he had ignored, all the courage he had failed to notice, and all the choices he had yet to make. His heart had learned to look, truly look, beyond routine and fear. He understood now that every act of courage, every choice of kindness, mattered. Sereth Kale moved through the corridors below, quiet, patient, and strong. For the first time in her life, she felt that she did not have to carry her burdens entirely alone. She had been seen, truly seen, and that recognition was more powerful than any reward. Calder had learned from her example, and together, human and dragon, they had begun a new understanding. One built on courage, trust, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. Calder returned to Eris, who was waiting eagerly. "Father, do you think she will stay with us?" the boy asked. Calder nodded, smiling warmly. "Yes, Eris. She will. And we will make sure she is never alone again." As the station settled into quiet routine, Calder realized that his heart had truly opened. The human who once refused to see now looked deeply, understood fully, and acted bravely. He knew that the greatest strength of humanity was not in dominance, machines, or knowledge. It was in the ability to see, to care, and to act even when no one was watching. And in that moment, Calder Vane knew that life would never be the same, for him, for his son, and for the dragon woman who had carried so much alone. Together they would face the galaxy not with fear, but with understanding, courage, and hearts that had learned to look.